Hello, everybody. My name is James Gore. I want to thank you for joining us for this call today. I am the County Supervisor representing District 4 here in Sonoma County, which includes the site here on the county campus. And before we get going, I want to begin with a brief message for anybody who's a Spanish speaker, who's one of our viewers. Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la sesión informativa. Esta reunión es sobre un sitio de vivienda de emergencia en el Centro de Administración del Condado de Sonoma en Santa Rosa. Si están participando por Zoom y quiere escuchar la presentación en español, busque y oprima el globo que indica interpretación y seleccione el idioma español. Muchas gracias. Once again, thank you. It's been 2 weeks since County of Sonoma. We have opened an emergency shelter site at the County Government Center, which is referred to as our county campus for the County of Sonoma. We now have approximately 70 individuals currently calling this place home. As promised, we're committed to keeping you updated as neighbors. This is the first of our neighborhood meetings since we opened the site. And we want to make sure that we continue these. So FYI, we're planning to do this again in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from now, which I believe is the 24th. And so we have a Board of Supervisors meeting that afternoon before we start some budget deliberations the following 3 days. So anticipate that we'll be sending out more information to those on this email list at that time. The recording of our webinar today is going to be posted on the county's Homeless Services Division website for future reference. On the website, you will also find a list of frequently asked questions, FAQs, about the emergency shelter sites, in addition to recordings of our last 2 webinars. Tonight, we have scheduled an hour. This is predominantly for an update from our provider and our county leads, and then to answer your questions. So reminder that if you're looking for really a preliminary update on what was the original setup, what was the design, how it ramped up, please go to that County Homeless Services Division website, or also email us on the email that we've provided to the neighbors. Happy to be joined today by one of my colleagues, peers, Supervisor Chris Coursey, who's chair this year of the Board of Supervisors. Also, we have Tina Rivera, the Director of Department of Health Services, who will be available to answer questions about services provided in the site. We have Dave Kiff. Dave is the Director of the Homelessness Services Division in our Department of Health Services. He will be providing a site update. And we also have Matt Littlegren from the County Council's office with us today to help answer any questions. One thing of note is when we initially announced that we would be moving to create and populate this site, we also mentioned that we would be reviewing an ordinance update to our anti-camping ordinance, which we affirmed and voted to bring back to the board. And we did that this past Tuesday. So potentially, if anybody has any questions of that, Matt Littlegren can also answer that as well. But that's an important action for accountability at the same time that we continue to provide services here and in many other locations. I want to start by, just as I pass it over to Supervisor Coursey, is to let everybody know that a question that has come up a few times has been what's changed over the last couple of years and how we manage this situation and provide options. And the County of Sonoma and our city partners have provided, not including this site, upwards of 522 sites that are online or coming online for expanded shelter space, interim housing space, and also permanent housing space. So we have taken unprecedented action to meet this challenge. We know that those solutions that we provide are in community. And as I've mentioned before, one of them is very close to my house. And so I honor what you all live with. and how we need to manage this going forward. So Supervisor Coursey, I'm going to pass it over to you first.
Thank you, James. I just first want to express my gratitude for all the hard work that's gone into standing up this shelter in a really quick fashion. This is tents, it's not housing, but for 70 people over the past 2 weeks, they've gone to sleep in a dry place every night. They've had food, good, healthy food provided for them every day. And they've had services from mental health services to whole health services available to them every day, along with showers and a lot of contribution from the community. So I want to thank the neighbors and our staff for helping us get this thing started. It's not the end, it's not housing, but it's a step toward that. Like the rest of us, I'm here tonight mostly to listen, so I will shut up and listen. Back to you, James.
Thank you, sir. If you have joined us on Zoom and would like to pose a question for our panelists or make a comment today, please make sure that you raise your hand or use the raise hand function on our Zoom. And your question, if you also have been invited to post your question in the Q&A box, it'll show up on your Zoom screen as well. So if you have any questions, please write that into the Q&A or into the chat, and the folks on this Zoom will be also answering as we move along. And we also invite you to email questions, comments, suggestions, concerns to temporary shelters at sonoma-county.org. That's temporary shelters at sonoma-county.org whichever one you use. We're going to take in a few questions and comments from the public in a few minutes, but first I'd like to pass it over to Dave Kiff. As I mentioned, he's the Homeless Service Division Director for a quick presentation.
Thank you, Supervisor. And again, thank you for all who are listening today and asking questions. My colleague Tina Rivera and I are here with the Department of Health Services, and we've been standing up the site. And we started basically as soon as we got direction from the Board of Supervisors towards the latter part of February. That involved bringing on service providers, getting the tents in, and doing a lot of logistical setup. So I just want to kind of walk you through what you see when if you're around the fence. So let's assume you're standing over in Paulin Creek and you're looking towards the encampment site. To your left-hand side are the roughly 87 tents, and these are structured as easy up canopies with what's called a camping cube underneath them. They're quite durable, and they come as that package from Easy Up. To your right-hand side is where most of the service provision occurs. That's where porta potties are. That's where a shower trailer comes in, usually 4 times a week, in part from the Redwood Gospel Mission, in part from the Downtown Streets team in Petaluma. And you'll also see there's a larger canopy there, which has been a warming canopy. Pretty soon it'll be a cooling canopy. And you'll see the main entrance gate, which is at the corner of Paulin and Admin. And that's where people from the encampment can enter the facility and exit. And you probably see a lot of people doing that. As Supervisor Coursey and Gore mentioned, there's about 73 people there as of our last census. And quite a few of them stay on site all day. Others will get on their bikes, or some have cars, and they'll leave the site and come back and do typical errands. Some of our encampment members have jobs. Others are going to visit family or going to see medical appointments. But I think one of the things that I see when I go in there, and I'm in there most days, a little bit less so now that it's up and running, but I see people who have more relaxed expressions on their faces, a little bit less stress in just the way they look and the way they walk. And people who are relieved, as Supervisor Coursey is noting, to have something over their heads in the rain that we've had, and now a place where they can get a meal and get care. So I'll stop there and certainly hand it back to you, Supervisor Gore, and I know Tina and I both welcome any questions that folks have.
Thank you very much, Dave. I think I appreciate that we're getting right to it. I want to make sure that we allow people to bring up their questions and whatever you've seen on the site. And I want to let you all know that we've been receiving your emails, getting your questions, and I also want you to let us know if there's anything that's working or needs to be improved upon in terms of the communication back and forth with our team and you all on a day-to-day basis. So before we go to the Q&A, one final, just passing it over to Paul Gullickson, our communications manager for the county. Just once again, would like to remind everyone that the webinar is being recorded and it will be available on the county's Facebook page and our YouTube channel in both English and Spanish. So you can share it with others. And as mentioned before, on our county homeless services website, we have the other two previous Zoom town halls we did, and this one will be included as well. Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor. Again, as Supervisor Gore mentioned, the best way to participate today is just to hit the raise hand button, and we will call on you, and we will let's start with one question in our Q&A box from Jean. Asks, what future measures will be taken to prevent campers from getting started on the Joe Rodota Trail after the temporary shelter expires?
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. I'm going to pass that over to Matt Lilligren, maybe to give an update on the revisions to our camping ordinance from this past week. And just an update on what areas we identified as working on this. Also, Matt, if you can, just a reminder on the process that this comes back to the board and gets final approval or actually takes effect. Maybe you can start with that.
Sure. So the ordinance amendments or the public camping ordinance amendments went to the board on April 4th. They're going to come back for adoption on April 18th. So this coming next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. And then they will take effect 30 days from that date if they are adopted by the board. Those proposed amendments identify 9 different areas as areas where camping is prohibited at any times. They are areas through the policy of the board that were identified as being inconsistent with public camping. And as to any other areas that are not specifically excluded, those areas, camping is permitted from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then it is prohibited from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. One of the areas that is within those 9 is any county parks. Camping is prohibited along with certain distances from a residence, certain distances within a public, within a waterway or a stream or a river. Also within there is certain distances from daycare, schools, places of that nature. And then there are also camping within the roadway or any public right-of-way where the camping would interfere with the public use of that property. Those are kind of the general prohibitions. There's 9 of them. If anyone's interested in more detail about that, the materials from the item are available on the county's website from the April 4th board meeting. There's a summary report discussing the amendments along with the proposed ordinance that was introduced by the board on April 4th. And then to answer kind of the general question, one of the things that this does allow the county to do is to prohibit camping. There's going to be probably signage that's going to go up on the Joe Rodeo Trail because that's going to be a specifically excluded area, and also gives the county more flexibility in terms of enforcing the camping prohibitions in that area. The specific implementation is still subject to ongoing meetings between the department heads, and should have a strategy by the time that the camping ordinance takes effect, which would be 30 days from April 18th.
Okay,
Thank you,
great.
Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else? Let me ask, also from our Q&A box, Tim asks this question. Will you clean up garbage left in our neighborhood by those people turned away from your facility? He says this should be done daily.
Well, we have been cleaning up the trash. We don't do it daily. I know that the first time I did it, I felt like I was picking up trash that was months old. And I say that respectfully. I don't say that meanly, but I have found that there is some trash there being left probably from folks from the encampment, but also trash being left along the roadside and blown up from the roadside. But you do have my commitment to continue to do that.
And Tim has a follow-up question. What is the arrangement for expanded police patrol with the city of Santa Rosa?
So we haven't had an arrangement to my knowledge, and the folks on the panel can correct me if I'm wrong, for expanded police patrol, but I know that the police have been quite responsive. If there's ever been any issue, I do see them around. So I think I'd have to just respectfully ask a question back. Have folks seen a need for expanded police patrol? I haven't, and I've been there a lot, but I'm certainly respectfully interested in other thoughts on that.
Okay, that's good. We'll invite people to respond to that. We have one person who's raised their hand. Butterfly, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm here at the camp. I haven't been offered any services for housing. Or I don't know.
You're kind of going in and out on us, Butterfly.
Yeah, I'm behind a big old generator, I guess. So I want to know what the plan is for after this camp.
What the plan is for what?
After this camp.
After this camp?
Yeah. Because I haven't had any contact with a housing coordinator or anything saying about anything after this camp.
Okay.
I've been here. Sorry if I'm yelling, but I'm behind a generator.
That's okay. I think we got your question. So you want to know, you haven't been approached about anything about what happens later about housing coordinator support.
Yes.
Okay. Tina or Dave, do you want to?
I believe part of her question, if I heard it right, was what happens after this camp. We are working on some plans with respect to transitioning from this particular temporary emergency shelter. So those plans are being coordinated with other department heads as well as other teams within our county. So we are currently working on a plan, an off-ramp plan for this particular camp. But also, if you have not yet been serviced, if you will, with respect to a housing plan, that is the goal, is that you will be connected with a case manager or a housing navigator, if you will. So the plan is not for you to wait for that additional plan that comes after this particular camp is demobilized, but is to work with you now so that you are being case managed, so that you are being, so that there's an intensive plan, a game plan for you now to begin to work on housing. So we can take your particular case offline, Ms. Butterfly. I believe I do know you. and your specific circumstances. So we can talk more with respect to what's going on with you in particular.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's go to one question that was emailed to us in advance. This is from Shirley. She says, thank you for the work you are doing in support for the unhoused. I was very pleased to hear that the new camping site is up and running, and I wish you the best. One question, have you hired additional case managers to handle the increased load? I'm hoping that the present case managers are not being further stretched.
I can speak to that the case managers, that the service provider has a staff of case managers who also work with our current case managers here at DHS. So they work together, case conferencing these particular individuals who are at the camp so that there is not a burden, if you will, or additional caseload on DHS staff. So this particular provider does have staff case managers who are working with those at this particular camp, but then also case conference with our staff to ensure that these plans, housing plans, as well as care plans are being case conferenced on a regular basis.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Another one of our emailed questions is from Sally. She asks, how many people were turned away from originally entering because they had contraband, and how many people have been kicked out for breaking the rules? Dave, can you answer that one?
I only know of 2 individuals who were exited for breaking the rules. I don't know of anyone who came in with contraband, and generally the folks are quite aware of the rules as they enter, and carrying that in would be a problem for them.
Okay. Rebecca asks, this is similar, relates to your answer previously, Tina, but she's asking, can we know how many case managers there are and how many more are needed to achieve desirable caseload ratios?
I believe we have the service provider on line who can answer for herself as far as her staff load ratios. I don't know if you guys can
Who is that?
elevate
Tina?
her. That's Michelle Patino.
Okay. Hannah, can you elevate her to panelist, or I can allow her? There we are.
Yes, can you folks hear me?
We can hear you. I think you can turn your
Okay.
camera on now too, if you want.
Oh, that's all right. I don't want you to see my dirty my garage right now. Trying to stay out of the wind. I can tell you that right now we have 2 case managers on staff, and we have what we utilize as 4 resource navigators that are assisting the case managers and doing the groundwork and assisting these individuals getting the driver's license, social security cards, that type of structure that are needed to further their housing goals. And that is being utilized currently at this time. We have 2 more case managers that we just hired as well.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Why don't you stay on? Looks like we may have some other questions for you. Let's go to Gail Simmons. Gail?
Hi. I'm wondering how many of the tents are actually occupied at this time? Thank you.
Well, we have about 87 total tents, and I think we have about 73 residents, but some of those are coupled up. So we're probably at about 68 to 69 tents occupied at this time.
Thank you.
Okay. let's go to Denise in our Q&A box asks, at a recent meeting on the Joe Rodota Trail, it seemed it wasn't confirmed whose residents contact, who residents should contact Santa Rosa PD or Sheriff's Office regarding issues on the trail. Has that been resolved? And if so, where is the contact info posted on the county's website? So who would like to take that on?
Matt, you want to give that a try?
So because the Joe Rodota Trail is a county regional park, the primary responding agency would be Sonoma County Regional Parks. It is also within the jurisdiction of Santa Rosa Police, so they provide support to regional parks when necessary if it's something they can't handle. As the posting on the website, the regional parks number is available on the county website. Go to regional parks.
So if there is something, people should contact the parks at this point, correct?
Correct, unless it's something that is a true, danger, emergency or something like that, then obviously contact the police.
Yeah, we'll see if we dig up that contact information, put it in the chat, or share it on the Q&A.
Paul, I see that there's a pretty detailed question with 4 or 5 different points on it. I was going to see if Dave and Matt and a few others could take a look at it and respond to it. And if Jerry wants to ask any specific questions, we can go through that as well. But I want to make sure that it's pretty detailed. So I don't know if that's to go.
Do you want to go through them one by one? I think we can, or at least the top. I don't know how would you advise going through this, James?
I appreciate that. I think start with, as I just asked, is for folks to write in some of the answers. And if he wants anything specifically addressed, maybe he can write it in further, but there's a lot of details there.
Yeah, a lot of those there are answered on our FAQ, frequently asked questions page on our website, but perhaps we could have staff address some of the answers as we go.
Yeah, I can start, and then maybe Michelle, if you're able to see Jerry Lalonberg's questions. A number of the issues that Jerry raised would be addressed within what's called the Code of Conduct or Behavioral Expectations. And that's the eviction procedure, the grievance policy and procedure, the rules and regulations. And we're happy to provide those. I had assumed more folks were aware of those, but I'm happy to provide those directly to Jerry if on behalf of apparently Homeless Action. That's fine to do. The agencies that are currently regularly at the site, that's primarily DEMA and our IMDT team. And we also do have nonprofits that come in, but they're providing a specific service, such as the Downtown Streets team coming up from Petaluma, and then Redwood Gospel Mission does come twice a week with their shower facility, but that's who is on site. But remember, our IMDT team involves folks from Human Services, involves our own team from Health Services and others. So they're regularly on site. Trying to think if there are any other parts of that I can answer. Maybe Michelle, are you able to see that?
And Dave, I cannot see that from my view here on this, but I'm happy to answer if you'll give me talking points in regards to that.
Sure. One of them, Michelle, Jerry asks, is DEMA staff housing first trained? How does the no alcohol or drugs posting factor into that? Are folks evicted if they have, I guess they mean drugs or alcohol in their possession or paraphernalia?
I can answer that. Yes, all of my staff is housing first trained. They all go through a very rigid training course, which is about 2 weeks long. They're trained in harm reduction, de-escalation techniques, crisis intervention as well, and housing first in dealing with this population, this demographic. And we have not evicted anybody or asked anybody to exit based on any illegal drugs or alcohol brought on site.
And then another
We
question.
confiscate, security confiscates those at the front gate.
Another question that Jerry asked is, what about acceptance and admittance? And I can cover that one. What we've asked DEMA, Michelle's firm, to do is not to admit anyone who wasn't partnered and referred there by our IMDT team. Again, the focus of this encampment is not to solve the region's homelessness problem, unsheltered problem. It is to be able to address the unhoused individuals that were on the Joe Rodota Trail. So in order to get into the site, you need a direct referral with our team, our IMDT team. Let me see if there's anything else there. Jerry asked a general question. Is there a message board for residents or for the public to leave messages for the residents? That might be a Michelle question. I'm not aware of how that might work.
Well, we do actually have a message board that goes out that is in the common area for the residents who are there, so that we can make sure that we communicate and they have all the information necessary. We are currently in the process of creating a dashboard that will be open to the community that can go by. It is a QR code. They can scan that QR code and know exactly what's happening at that site at all times, and that is almost done being implemented.
Okay. Anything else, Paul, you see on there that I skipped?
No, I think you've covered it. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Michelle.
And Jerry, if you're listening, I'll make sure you have a copy of the Code of Conduct rules.
Let me stay with our Q&A box. I know we have some employees for the county on joining us today. And David asks, if an employee or person is injured by a homeless individual on county campus, is the county of Sonoma held liable? This is in response to a gun being found during the intake process. I don't know if somebody, Matt or Dave, if you want to answer that.
It's not a question we can answer here in this forum. I mean, there's so many factors available that would affect that analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just add also that, you know, as unfortunate as that is, that's a part of the intake process, is to identify that. I mean, we want the intake process to work so that individuals don't come in with dangerous items, but until the intake process starts, we can't completely control that. So I understand the concern, but as we say, it's difficult because all these, you know, for Matt, can't really respond based on suppositions. So
Yeah, and if anything, that's an example of the intake process working, right?
Well, it's why we have a search that occurs each time people go in to try and ensure safety.
Yeah. Okay. Gene asked, do we have an estimated date for reopening the Joe Rodota Trail? There's a few trail questions. Matt, I don't know if you have an update for it. We don't have somebody from Parks here, but
there is not currently a date. As far as I know, they're still doing cleanup work related to the encampments around the trail. I think that's probably getting close to being done, and they're doing some repair, fencing, and doing some maintenance and things of that nature. So I would guess that we should probably have a better idea sometime this week or next week.
Yeah. Denise asked a question that we've heard before, and it's a good question. The people who are exited from the county camp due to not following the rules, are they provided transportation somewhere, or do they end up on the streets of Santa Rosa?
I can start answer that one just on my knowledge, and then Michelle can add anything. Remember, the individuals still have free will. They can leave and refuse any further services, including walking right out and getting whatever transportation they want or they don't want. we did have a person self-exit the other night on Thursday night, and we did provide her with transportation back to where she wanted to go. That was in Santa Rosa. She was a person homeless from Santa Rosa. So I didn't ask further questions about where she wanted to go, but we did provide that.
Okay, Butterfly has another question. Butterfly, you want to go ahead?
So I was wondering, like, do the people that get exited get a tent, a blanket, so they can go back on the Santa Rosa streets?
People who are exited leave with their possessions.
That's it?
We don't
So that's
provide anything further.
Oh, okay. So, and the board had just got up today, as far as I know. I just seen it today.
I didn't hear what you said, Nina.
Okay, the board that was supposed to tell us that what's going on had just got
Message
up
board.
yesterday. And then the people from the JRT, I know about 10 people here that are on the JRT, that was on the JRT.
Thank you.
Let's see, Gary would like to ask a question. Gary?
Yeah, this is Jerry Laloneford.
Jerry?
I live in Petaluma. Thank you for your answers, all of you, for my 10 questions. I appreciate that. The one additional suggestion I had was to figure out a way to let the community offer resources, maybe add something to the message board for that. But the question that was not answered is the one about the grievance procedure. Who hears the grievances? How are those carried forward? And is there an appeal process? Thank you.
There is a grievance procedure described in the rules, the code of conduct, and my colleague James Alexander hears those grievances. And he's already heard one, possibly two already.
I can speak to your question. This is Michelle with DEMA. I can speak to your question with the community donations. We are in process of putting a form on our website that if you'd like to donate, but currently you may call the site administrator, and I'm happy to give that phone number. We've had many community members come in and donate multiple items and food, and we are more than happy to have these community members come in and assist.
Great. Thank you. Let's see. We have a question from Shirley. Might you consider this to be not I guess she's saying, but not a temporary site? The need obviously is not temporary, and the unhoused need a safe place to camp or park. Realistically, housing will not be found for all in the camp who want it.
So I can start, and then maybe Tina might want to add on further. This is something that Tina has talked about, and I know the board has talked about as well, is that we do have a limited time for this site under the permitting protocols and restrictions. We have talked about, though, making sure we have something for what's next. And that could be some modification of what we're doing now. It could be something that combines an indoor use for those who are ready to be indoors, and outdoor uses like tents or like tiny homes. So we'll be discussing this as a team and with the Board of Supervisors and community about what that looks like. And we'll have hopefully a little bit more time to work on that collectively. And we've started already to begin to meet about that.
Great.
I think that's a good question. And I just want to stress that the answers aren't there yet, but we're talking about many different options. I mean, we have to, as for the neighbors who are on the call, I'd encourage you to also be included and be aware. And if you need to follow up with me in my office on future plans for the county site. We already had one reviewed before the Board of Supervisors about building a new county administration building that would service about half of our workforce. I think overall, the entire campus plan is a relevant one. We've had conversations about once again, our other county-owned facilities. We also, in a lot of the work that's gone up until now, that's created increased shelter space, interim housing space, permanent supportive housing space, has come from our applications and approved awards through a state program called Project Homekey that provides about 75% towards the purchase of facilities or the build out of facilities. You can anticipate that we and our city partners are going to be identifying more of that going forward. I know the governor has proposed and floated plans to put out a bond for which would provide sustained funding for $3 to $4 billion under a current proposal for behavioral health housing. It's also floated a plan to divert some of our Mental Health Services Act funding, which currently provides a lot of program funding. And I say us, I mean that in terms of all the 58 counties, diverting some of that towards behavioral health housing. So, it's a reminder that we live in a state that had a deconstruction of really 30, 40 years of really the system of care in terms of providing placements. If you look towards even facilities like Sonoma Developmental Center here in our area that provided to development of disabled individuals and others, facilities like that, even with a difficult past, provided many options through the state and other networks. And so, we're rebuilding a support network from an area where the capacity just wasn't there. We've continued to have, since I've been a supervisor and since many of you have been involved in this, is a system where initially encampments were moved. We had a housing first policy. We didn't have enough housing to provide options. And then with the onset of the change in the legal world of Martin v. Boise is and I don't chagrin this, I think it holds accountability to all of us, is that it says if you're going to move people from public land, you have to provide an option. And it's not just a poor option, it's an option that legally holds a standard that takes you, not just taking somebody from a situation like on the trail to just one step or two steps better, but providing something that's safe, something that in our case has security. And many people wonder why it costs a lot of money, but that's because we hold ourselves accountable to that when we do take action. So it's thorough, it's developed. We have definitely as a board given Tina Rivera, Director of Health, and others direction to keep coming back to us with different ideas that can move the bar. And for me personally, I just want to say is that the days of people wanting to provide programs but not providing placements are gone. You have to provide placement opportunities for individuals. It's not only the compassionate and smart thing to do, it's also the frugal thing to do, because you're talking about I hate to even talk about that when we're talking about people's lives, but we have to provide services so that individuals don't just keep cycling through the system. And so I just wanted to kind of mention that. So Paul, do we have any other questions?
Yeah, a couple more. A couple of questions are along the same vein, and it revolves around this. When will the shelter start taking residents other than those who came from Joe Rodota Trail? It sort of dovetails with what you were saying, Supervisor Gore. Do we see right now most of those at the shelter site are from Joe Rodota Trail, but will we be taking in others? Dave, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, that date is yet to be determined. We still have some work to do involving the trail, so we're not ready to announce a date or a time at which we'll take people from other locations.
Okay, thank you.
I do appreciate the question, though. I'm not dismissing it.
Okay, Gail?
Yes, please. I just want to take this opportunity to remind all of us that this is a stepping stone process. many, many stepping stones in the pathway to having a healthy community, and safe parking lots, even at night only, are a very economic way to help many people that are hiding in our city in their cars, people with jobs, people that just can't park in many areas without being harassed. And so this is a good, this is one stepping stone that we're working on here. And we know that there will be more campers on the trail and in the community than we can ever absorb in this one campsite. So I hope that we'll continue to work on other creative options. I also really think that LaBath Landing type communal living environments where we share toilet and kitchen and dining areas are much more efficient, and community is healthy. When we take people and put them in apartment buildings all by themselves, they have lost their community and they will not be as healthy. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you, Gail. One of our viewers, Teddy says, I have interviewed a handful of tenants at the camp and have been told there is a full body search prior to being allowed in with wand and pat down. Persons who are visiting are also subject to search, and there is a limited window of opportunity to visit and only a section where visitors can visit. I guess his question is focusing on whether all that is necessary and whether it's a Fourth Amendment violation to search an individual without justifiable cause.
I'll take that one. In our rules, and before anyone enters or agrees to go to the site, the rules specifically state that people will be searched when entering or exiting the site. So people are consenting to that as a precondition to coming into the site. It's a safety and security issue. And that's the same for at the point when visitors are coming in. We don't want people smuggling in prohibited items, weapons, or things of that nature. Again, safety and security issue. No different than if you're coming into the Board of Supervisors chambers, you're searched at that point to come into as a safety and security issue.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. So Rebecca says, just to confirm, Michelle said 4 caseworkers and 4 resource navigators will achieve sufficient caseload ratio, ? She didn't say how many is planned to be in total.
So Paul, I can answer that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Tina, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna simply add, there's also 10 of our own caseworkers here at the county who support her staff. And then Michelle, you can go ahead and add.
To piggyback on that, Tina, I was going to say that as well. And that, as 4 case managers, we have 2 on staff. So I'm so sorry. During the day and at intermittent times, so that we are able to contact each and every individual based on their daily lives and coming and going within the area there. And also our resource navigators, housing navigators work with the case management, and they are there consistently throughout the day up until midnight, so that we can meet and we can discuss with every single individual based on their life, if they have jobs, what's going on outside, and then coming in and we can touch base with them all.
Great. Okay, I think we're getting through a lot of our questions here. Jean says, not a question, just a note of thanks. Thank you for all the good work each of you and your colleagues are doing, and thank you for this helpful forum. It is most appreciated. This is a complicated matter. We're not alone in our community. All of America faces the same challenges, and I'm proud to be a resident of a county that is managing the unhoused situation as best we can. So thank you, Jean. Butterfly, did you have one more comment?
I did. So I did want to thank you guys all for all your great work. We've been working for this camp for so long, but we have to sign our rights over for a place to live, to be wanted, to be searched. And I don't know where these 4 case managers are because I've never met one of them.
Okay, is that, okay. Well, thank you, Butterfly. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd just say to that, I mean, there needs to be individual follow-up on the ground, follow-up from this. Thank you very much for your comment. Tina and Dave, I think you, as you mentioned, you can follow up individually. I think absolutely, we want to make sure that's all tight. Others? Well,
I'm looking through, some of these questions have sort of already been addressed.
mhm.
Denise asked, what, if any, facilities that residents of the county camp would transition to are expected to come online this year? So basically, are there other facilities that are going to be coming online where residents of this camp could transition to?
Yeah, I think
There
Dave-
are, yeah. And that's, I love that question because it allows us to talk a little bit more about how the pipeline is expanding. Petaluma's 60-unit permanent supportive housing Project Home Key site should be open towards May. That's just a month away. And I know we have some folks who are in line for that already within the county system. And that's allocated by a coordinated entry. They're not just Petaluma residents, it's county residents, county small c. And then our George's Highway project also should be open by the end of this year, then this calendar year. And then importantly, Caritas Homes right here in Santa Rosa will add 64 units of affordable housing by the end of June, including 30 just for their homeless dedicated units. So people coming out of homelessness. And then Catholic Charities with Burbank is working on that project. They're going to try to mirror that again, just in a couple of years with the next phase of Caritas Homes. So these are just examples of what's going on throughout the region in terms of adding to our supply of next steps. And then as Tina mentioned, we're working as a county team to look at what the next step for this specific facility will look like, notwithstanding the other things I mentioned.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dave. Thank you, everybody. We're getting toward the top of the hour here. I don't see, I think we've gone through all the questions and I don't see any more raised hands. One more, excuse me.
Paul, there's one there about have any county supervisors talked to residents of the camp?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
The answer to that is yes. And that will continue.
Yeah, likewise. I've also realized when I go over there is that sometimes individuals don't want myself or other people every time they walk in and out of the camp to say, hey, how you doing? How's it going? Are you okay? So, you know, one thing that I've tried to do is go over there and be relevant, be with Dave and Michelle and others and kind of, but respect the difference between the kind of the communal area, the intake area, and not go over to the other side, but also, you know, be very respectful. I've done the same thing when we've opened up Los Gilicos and quite a few other places. Is I try to personally hold myself accountable to know what's going on.
Okay. Chessie would like to say something. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
At the last Q&A that you got, first and foremost, thank you for allowing this bridge and, excuse me one moment, please. Okay, I apologize. First and foremost, thank you for allowing this opportunity for members of the community to engage with this process. I think it's very fair and reasonable, and it helps to hold everyone accountable when you guys are so open and transparent. I'd like to do a follow-up on the question of the Fourth Amendment and the searches. I believe his name is Matt Lilligren, stated that there is a form or a consent form that has to be signed. However, the amendment rights are unalienable. So I would like for him to elaborate on the definition of what an inalienable or unalienable right is. The second question that I have, or comment rather, is from the first meeting that was held, I believe the projected goal was to have 25 people out of the 90 that the camp is designed to hold housed after 6 months. I would like to know if that number is still the projected number to have this program to be considered successful, or has that number changed? Thank you.
Matt, start with you if there's anything that you want to add.
I mean, I'm not going to debate the law here, but I'll just say that, the Fourth Amendment has a number of exceptions. There's an analysis that needs to be completed, one of which is reasonableness of any government action, and the other is the consensual nature of any search. And I was pointing out that the rules do provide that searches will occur because that completes a consensual nature of it. It's no one's forced to go to the site. If they do things that they're going to give up to ensure the safety of the residents, and that's completely reasonable and standard practice in almost every government setting that you go into, whether it's the federal court building, our court building, the Board of Supervisors chambers, anything of that nature.
I want to just also stress real quickly from that back to the point is it's always interesting to be, I want to acknowledge that on a call where in one case, there's some individuals who want everybody to be searched to the point where they have absolute safety, and we have to hold ourselves to the government standard, and that Matt talks about. And on the other side, there's individuals who don't want to be searched and don't want rules, and we have to hold ourselves to a standard in between. And I hope you hear that from us, even if you're frustrated on one side or the other, is when we do have examples, for instance, of a weapon being identified coming in, that doesn't mean that it changes the whole system so that everybody gets that we go crazy in terms of that. Is we want to be clear with the standard. That's what we've always tried to be, so that we ensure safety but ensure individuals' privacy as well. We are pretty close to the top of the hour. Paul, want to see if we have anything else?
No, I think we're good. Thank you all for your participation. And as Supervisor Gore mentioned, our plan is to do this again in 2 weeks, and we'll send out an invitation and a notice about that.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for leaning in. Thank you for being inconvenienced by something that we're dealing with in our community across our state. But thank you for your questions on accountability. Thank you for those who care about the community outside around this site. Thank you for those who care about the individuals on the inside. Thank you for paying attention. There's a lot of people who are loud but don't pay attention and don't follow up. Our goal is to make sure that you're heard and that we respond. And as I say, is that I've even gotten some notes, and I really want to continue to dive into this issue of the surrounding community. And so I'm going to try and find a time with some of you all to take a walk in the neighborhoods and not just hold myself accountable, as Supervisor Coursey said, with the individuals in the camp, but the neighbors. Thank you.